Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week of public speaking. I will be your host, Sophia Godfrey. And to review from last week we talked about Monroe's motivated sequence, which is our organizational pattern we are using for our pitch speech coming up. And we also talked about using language well, how powerful language can be, how we differ from written language, like oral versus written, and how it's not what you say, how you say it, what words you choose that changes the iconicness of your speech. So let's get into it, boys. Update on the T-ball team. We lost another game on Saturday, but I will say we tied and we only lost because they made one more out than we did, so then they got the point because we can't tie apparently in T-ball. That's just an update with me. How was everyone else's weekend? Would love to hear about it. Okay. So for today, we're going to briefly go over Monroe's motivated sequence one more time, just as a refresher, just so I know we're all on the same page, or if it didn't click last week, maybe it will click this week. Um, we are going to talk about speaking to persuade, and then if we have time, we'll get into impromptu speaking very briefly, and then we'll go into review and assignments. So let's get into it. So let's review the MMS patterns. So remember, these are the 5 steps. This is basically how our outline is going to look. Remember, there's a template on D2L, but it's not all that different than our other setups. Think of your attention as your introduction, your need, satisfaction, and visualization as the body slash main points, and then your action as your conclusion. So, although it looks a little different, it really is very, very similar to what we've been doing. Um, Remember our attention, we've done it before. That's just our attention getter. Get your audience's attention. And yes, I do want your attention to be very similar to how we usually set up our speeches, just so we keep on doing what we learn, but right, we need credibility, we need relevance, and I want you to preview your main points. So say, and today we'll talk about your need, satisfaction, visualization, right? Then we get into our need. So draw on the needs of your specific audience. What's their problem? What I want you to do is find a pain point. Think of your audience, right? There's different sub like audiences within your audience, right? Their interests, their knowledge, and touch on all of them, honestly, and you push on that pain point. I think your need also is a great place to put a some kind of statistic citation of some sort to really add to that credibility and bring that whatever problem, pain there is, and put kind of a number to it, which would be very, very helpful for your speech. So once we've gained the attention, we've shown a problem. Now let's satisfy that need or problem. So the thing about satisfaction is you're going to show how you're satisfying that need, and you are telling us everything we need to know about it. So say you are trying to petition for a new club on campus. So you're going to tell us everything we need to know about this club. Where is it going to meet? What times is it going to meet? What activities is going to be done? Are there going to be opportunities for officer positions? How will the organization run? Does it cost money to join? Will y'all go on field trips? Is it competition based? Is it sports related? Will you need materials to join? Everything we need to know, tell me in satisfaction. Your need and your satisfaction are probably going to be the largest portions of your speech. Um, and once we have satisfied that need, we go into visualization. What will your life look like without your solution? What does life look like with your solution? Then move on to your action. So, what does your audience need to do to get satisfaction? Right? And tell them right there and then you need to sign this paper. You need to sign this petition. You need to go to this QR code and fill out this form. You need to, whatever it is they need to do, make sure they do it right then and there. Last thing I'm going to say about this before I move on is that each part has to be in this order. Attention has to be first, need has to be second, like, and so on and so on. The most important one that most people get points off on is they reveal the satisfaction way too early. So in their attention, they'll be like, I'm going to tell you about this club on campus that I want to, or this ballet club on campus that I am trying to petition for. The minute you reveal it, you kind of lost that emotional power and kind of um I don't know, not the I hate the word tease for this, but it's the anticipation of it that you build up in your need. And satisfaction, right, needs to be like it's almost like a big reveal. Like you take the sheet off of it and you're like, ta-da! Like this is what it is. So I want y'all to think really hard about saying as ambiguous, as like non-specific as you can in attention and need about what you're talking about, and then reveal it in your satisfaction. That's my only tidbit I want to say, and I will say a lot of people have issues with this, so I want y'all to work extra hard to not be those people. So that is my quick rundown on MMS. Remember, please email me, ask questions on Wednesday because I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page. We know what's going on, we know what's happening, etc. So, ye to the ha. Okay, I want to go through some quick example real quick, just so you can kind of see it. This isn't my favorite example, but I just kind of, it's from your book, and I kind of want to just see it, have y'all see it in practice. So, first step, attention. So, this photo shows cars parked in a hot parking lot on a summer day. The windows are rolled up, and when the owners return, they will have to endure stifling heat until their air conditioning cools an interior. So, they're kind of using that imagery for their attention getter. The thing I would want you to add, obviously, is your thesis, audience relevance, credibility, and preview points. Next is need. So in this parking lot, the cars, asphalt, and concrete are absorbing the sun's energy and retaining heat, making an urban heat island. We need to find a way to keep our cars cool and stop wasting all of the solar energy and instead use it to our advantage, right? So the need is that, look, there's all these cars, asphalt, concrete, and they're just absorbing the sun's energy, doing nothing with it, just making the freaking world a lot hotter than it needs to. So how can we find a way, right? We're missing a way that we can keep these cars cool and stop wasting all this energy and heat that's happening anyways. So then we satisfy that. The solution is to park our cars under a solar canopy that protects them from blazing heat and at the same time converts all that solar energy into electricity. The solar canopy is one of 4 canopies that protect 600 cars at federal buildings in Denver, Colorado. They save the U.S. government about $500,000 in electricity costs each year, and they provide plug-in charging stations for electric cars. So he reveals the whatever, like the satisfaction itself. and then goes into a lot of details on everything we need to know, right? How many cars it protects, a specific location, how much money it saved the US government, and even extra things we need to know, like it also provides this. Now let's visualize. So this is going to be a positive visualization, but with solar canopies at a mall, this couple can drive away in a car that doesn't need a blast of air conditioning to cool down. Not only are they comfortable, but they are saving money on the cost of gasoline to power the air conditioner. So like we talked about, like the gal talked about in the video on Wednesday, this is a positive visualization where I want you to do the contrasting. So I want you to have a negative one, which shows life without, and a positive life with. And remember, she said your visualization will usually have a imagine this, picture this. That will be how your visualization usually starts. And lastly, action. Please sign my petition to request solar canopies for our campus. The petition includes information about how many millions of dollars the college can save in electricity bills in the coming decades. And it also includes a request for plug-in charging stations so that students can get free electricity supplied when they are in class. Right? We have the action itself, which please sign my petition. Boom. Perfect. What I don't like about it is it doesn't have a strong concluding statement, right? Think about being engaging, especially like in our Shark Tank videos we watched. Use that as your pitch vibe. These truly are just showing you the, I guess, language itself, like just supplying the action, visualization, etc. Um, but think of the pizzazz you want to put into a pitch speech, like the energy levels, right? We talked about how you want your energy levels to, like, you start high, you dip down a tiny bit, but you want to end actually higher in energy than you started. So think of how you can add that pizzazz and add a strong concluding statement that really brings your pitch speech all together. Okay, let's finally get into persuasive speaking. So first off, let's get into the goals of persuasive speaking. First is to win over your listeners, know your subject thoroughly, and to maintain a high standard of ethical behavior. So to win over your listeners, right? This is to convince them to think a certain way or do something. So for example, a speech to convince your audience to donate blood, right? The whole point of most speeches is to win over your listeners, especially a persuasive speech. If you do not win over your listeners, your persuasive speech was not very successful. Second is know your subject thoroughly. If you are not knowledgeable and competent in the eyes of the audience, you have lost that persuasive power. That is everything. If your remember we said your credibility lies with your audience. If your audience doesn't see you as someone who knows what they're talking about, of course they're not going to do what you're telling them, right? If we rarely do it with like some of our friends, right? If there's a friend we have that just we know like yeah, doesn't do their research or kind of believes everything, right? It's going to be harder for them to persuade us. So be very aware of that in your speeches as well. And lastly, maintaining a high standard of ethical behavior. Because you're persuading people, we got to use it for good, not evil. And that's kind of intense, but right, this is avoiding manipulation and deceit. That's kind of like the let's be morally sound and good, but also just like the little things we don't think of, like we want to do really good, we want to persuade, we want people to listen to us, but sometimes we can be support our speech by being untruthful and inaccurate just by exaggerating stuff, right? Being like, this is going to change your life. This is going to make you 10 times beautiful. Or this is going to, right? This is going to make you, I don't know. I'm just thinking about like insane things that people will Like people say like they're selling snake oil. Like we don't want you to be that person, right? So use supports that are truthful and accurate. Next is the types of persuasive speaking. So the first one is your speech to influence thinking. And second is a speech to motivate action. So your speech to influence thinking is probably going to be more of your persuasive speech at the end of the semester. And your speech to motivate action is very much going to be your pitch speech that we are working on right now. So the speech to influence thinking is an effort to convince people to adopt your position on a particular subject, where your speech to motivate action is to try to win people over to your way of thinking by convincing them to take action. So let's get into each one of these. So the first one, speech to influence thinking. So some examples of like purpose statements would be to convince my audience that marijuana should be legalized for recreational purposes. To convince my audience that the capital gains tax should be lowered. To convince my audience that access to healthcare is a basic human right. So convince can be replaced with persuaded or to persuade my audience. But right, that they should be legalized, that it should be lowered. And then this one doesn't have the should, but that access to healthcare is a basic human right. So ways to go about controversial topics. I think this is important, right? The pitch speech, this won't really apply, but your persuasive speech, like I think we always kind of are drawn to more controversial topics. And I never want to say don't do them, right? It's important to have and learn how to have difficult conversations without these emotions coming in and people kind of shutting down and getting angry. Like it is so important for us to have these topics or these topic discussions so we can, right, build a future that looks healthy and happy and safe. And that's all we want in life, right? So here's some tactics specifically for public speaking. So first is be respectful to your opposing viewpoints. So, a great way to go about this is, especially in your introduction or kind of before you start speaking, is have this kind of disclaimer, right? Saying, I want to discuss a topic that I know people have strong feelings about. I respect your opinions on this topic. My goal is not to start an argument, but rather to facilitate a discussion, right? This will help you start off your speech kind of at a level playing field, right? The minute you kind of, I have examples of, right, abortion, right? The minute if you were to start saying, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to persuade you today about why abortion is blah, 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 is morally sound or morally unsound, right? The minute you say that, multiple people in the crowd's guards are going to come up. They're going to start, their brain's going to be like racing and they're going to start being like, what is this person about? They probably think this and this. They probably done this. They probably voted for this person. Like you're already getting this person emotional and going and guard up and kind of in like their fight mode. Having this shows that like you're like, whoa, 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 like I'm not here to bash anyone's opinions or beliefs. I'm just here to have a discussion, right? And especially in this class, most of the times I'll probably ask you like choose a side that you actually don't believe, right? Number one, because you'll know the arguments for the other side, so you can kind of try to argue back. And it kind of gives you this full perspective of the argument itself, which is actually very helpful when you're trying to be persuasive. So that is our first way. Our second way is avoid using emotionally charged language. Oh my gosh. In your speech, if you say abortion is a murder, oh my gosh. Um, I know we are trying to be persuasive and I know I'm like be biased, but using language like we talked about using language well. When you use language that's emotionally charged, that's almost like this intense, um, I don't know, like super intense and puts kind of like a negative or super positive view on something. Remember, if someone's on the fence or someone is against what you're saying, these are almost like you're trying to fight them. Once you get the emotionally charged language in, you're not just trying to facilitate a discussion. You're like, I'm right, you're wrong. And there's no discussion about it. Next is attempt to find areas of common ground. So it's less likely, especially like a topic like abortion, right? It's less likely that you will change someone's opinion on abortion itself, but you might convince them to support efforts that reduce unwanted pregnancies, such as the availability of free birth control or having better sex education programs in high school. So, thinking about a topic, right? If you're like, oh, I wanted to do abortion, just know, right? It's going to be hard to find that common ground in there, but, right, you can advocate for, supplying free birth control. You can advocate for people having better sex education programs in high school, right? This is less intense of a jump. Like if people are kind of over here, like I don't know if I want this. If you do a really good speech on these, it is more likely that they can jump to this versus like abortion versus no abortion, right? Like that jump is too far, far, far of a jump to make them come to your side. So trying to find an area of common ground, I think is a very, very, very um helpful and good technique when doing a persuasive speech. So next, let's talk about speeches to motivate action. So there's going to be three types. There's going to be one that starts, one that continues, and one that stops. So some examples of specific purposes is to persuade my audience or my audience. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. To persuade my listeners to sign a petition aimed at requiring drivers over 75 be retested each year for their driver's license. To persuade my audience to stop overspending on their credit card accounts. Another one would be to persuade my listeners to contact their representatives in Congress to demand mandatory background checks on all gun purchases. Right? I am motivating them to do something, right? I want them to stop overspending. I want them to sign a petition. I want them to contact their representatives. So I'm having them do something. So some tips for motivating action is first ask for the precise action that you want. Don't assume that they know exactly what you need from them to to accomplish what you're asking of them. I need you to literally say, I want you to sign this petition. I want you to stop doing this. I want you to I want you to tweet this. I want you to write a letter to this person. You need to tell them the exact thing you want them to do. And secondly, whenever possible, get a response before the listeners leave the room. Majority of the time, right? And I think even the gal on Wednesday talked about in our video, like most of the time people really are like they're like, yeah, this is great. I'm gonna do this, blah blah blah. But life gets busy. Like we leave the room and then life happens and we're like, oh shoot, like I forgot to do that, right? So honestly, make it easier for everyone and have them do the response before leaving the room. So, example, right? You could do get out your phones or go on social media. An example, send a text to make us donation. Or you can log on to Facebook or X and um, tweet your local representative that you want, blah, blah, blah. You could have a petition, so it could be like literally on paper being passed around. Or you can have them like scan a QR code and they sign up, literally be like, okay, I'll give you like 1 minute and here's the QR code and I'll have you do that now, blah, blah, blah. Boom. Put it in their hands like, okay, like here's the time, do it. You could do a show of hands. So like who's gonna make a public commitment to do X, Y, and Z? And lastly, a sign-up sheet. You could, if you needed some volunteer work or something, even if like they're not doing right, like joining a club, they can't do that right then. They'd have to go like the first meeting or like doing tryouts. They can't do it then, but they can sign up and then you can reach out to them later. So it's like you have at least the first step of getting their information, getting their number, getting their email, and then you reach out, and then from there, they can make the choice to do the action, right? But it just makes it easier for them. So these are some tips to make sure you get that action at the end of your speech. Next is patterns of organization. So we have Monroe's motivated sequence, problem solution, statement of reasons, and comparative advantages. So, right, the first one is going to be like our pitch speech. And then for our last one, these will be some organizational patterns that you can use as well. So we've gone over this a billion times, but Monroe's motivated sequence, this is to sell a product or service, or when you want to mobilize listeners to take specific action. And again, remember those 5 steps in that order. Next is problem solution. So you show a problem exists and you offer a solution. Easy peasy. Especially effective when your listeners don't know much about the problem or don't know how serious it is. So our specific purpose is to persuade my audience to avoid using plastic bags when shopping. Our thesis is use alternatives to plastic bags when grocery shopping to help reduce the amount of plastic bag waste. So our first main point is the problem. So plastic bags are destroying our environment, and then all the support I need for that. Next is our solution. We should find alternatives to plastic bags. And here are all the options for alternatives, right? Boom, bam, bop, problem solution. Next is statement of reasons. So this is a variation of the topical pattern where the speaker gives reasons for their argument. And this is useful when the audience leans towards your position, yet needs some justification for that leaning. So an example would be a specific purpose, so to persuade my listeners about the importance of getting a flu shot. And the thesis is getting a flu shot not only benefits you, but also may help the most vulnerable people in the community. So the first reason would be you reduce your chance of getting the flu. Second reason would be even if you get the flu, your symptoms will likely not be as severe. And thirdly, if you will be reducing the chance that the flu will spread, especially important for infants and others with medical conditions are not allowing them to get a flu shot. So that is reasons why your reasons for your thesis or reasons why your I can't think of the word right now. As y'all know, I can never think of any word ever. But basically, reasoning for my argument. And lastly is comparative advantages. So this shows that your recommended solution is superior to others. So this is good for when listeners already agree with you that a problem exists but aren't sure which solution is best. So they're already on your side and they're like, 100% I agree, but I don't really know exactly where to go after that. So your specific purpose would be to convince my audience that conventional medicines are superior to herbal remedies in treating a common cold. My thesis is conventional medicines are more likely than herbal remedies to relieve symptoms of the common cold. My first advantage is unlike herbal remedies, conventional medicines are tested and given FDA assurance of safety and purity. My second advantage is unlike herbal remedies, conventional medicines are required to list possible side effects. And lastly, conventional medicines act more quickly than herbal remedies to lessen discomfort. So all of these are showing why conventional medicines are better than herbal remedies. So now that we've gone through the different patterns of organization, let's talk about after the speech is done. So for this class, once you make your speech, you're done with the assignment and you're kind of honestly just waiting for your grade. But in the professional world, you want to make sure that your message has spread from the people in the room to their colleagues, to their supervisors, etc. You want your message to have um, to go the distance, to really stick in people's minds. So ways we can do that is by the leave behinds. First is the summary. So this is a condensed version of your key information. This helps people recall what you said or a good abstract for someone who couldn't attend. And it is no more than 1 page. Keep it short, keep it sweet, but something you can kind of leave behind that gives a synopsis of what you talked about. Next is memory aids. So, for example, these could be like cards that can be placed in a wallet or a purse for future reference. Um, when I was in college, there was like this juice place, and they had a little, like, literally a little business card that had I think the dirty seven, and then there's like the clean 10 or something, or dirty 10 and clean seven, something like that. And so it showed like the top 10 most like pesticide sprayed GMO veggies and fruits that it's like no matter what you do, like you need to get organic and you need to wash them like very intensely. Um, just so in case you're curious, strawberries and spinach are like top up there for sure. Um, but I just kept that in my purse. And so like if I go grocery shopping, I would just like grab it and then I would look at it. So see like how like effective those can be, just like have it conveniently at your fingertips at all times. Next is graphics. So this could be just copies of the graphics, the diagrams, and tables that you used in your speech for visual support. Like imagine if you talked about how you could save this company so much money. Oh my gosh, you better have a graphic or a diagram on like on how much time and how much money you save, like really show that visualness of the points you were making because we're very visual people and those graphics can stick a lot more than just words, right? Next is new points. So this is if you can't cover everything in your time limit, you can add other material that you didn't get to, but that you deem important. Next is sources and websites. So literally have a paper with sources so people can, pursue the subject further. So give them different websites to go to, podcasts, books. Um, yeah, because there's a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, I align with what you're saying. Like, how can I get more into this? So that would be super helpful. Next is samples. So a tangible reminder of your message. So this one's a simple one. Say you're trying to sell lotion. Then you give us all a little sample of that lotion, right? Easy peasy. Something tangible to leave behind, food, an object, etc. Next is multimedia. So this one, you could tell it's a little outdated, but provide a USB with information that can provide bonus material. I bet one day y'all will have that budget in the business world, but also you could use a QR code now, like for my resume when I was going out in the world and trying to get a big girl job. I actually put a QR code next to my like in my resume. And so you could go to it and see all my projects that I have done. Um, and I had them in different folders depending on like, was I gonna be doing like data analyst stuff? Was I gonna be doing social media stuff? Was I gonna be doing like public relations? So I had different things and it showed each one. So please steal that because you need to definitely be quirky and different out there in the job hunting world. And lastly, file folders, basically having folders that your audience can organize all their information in one and keep it. It's most likely that if they keep it in a file folder, they won't throw it away versus if they just had a sheet of paper. So this is ways to kind of keep your message going after the speech. And that is it on our persuasive speaking. And I actually wanted to touch on impromptu speaking because I am going to have us on Wednesday do an in-class challenge using MMS and impromptu speaking, ye to the ha, which is very exciting. It'll get y'all practicing, and I think especially the impromptu is so important to learn, especially for your pitch speech, because it is that idea of like the job fair, career fair. You never know what people are going to ask, you never know what people are going to do. And so it is nice to kind of like combine this like pitch with this impromptu type of speaking. Do I want you to do impromptu for your speech? 100% no. But in the outside world slash getting us used to our MMS pattern, I would love for us to do it. So let me drink some water. Give me a second. So, what is impromptu speaking, right? Our impromptu speaking is just the spur of the moment. You've had no opportunity for extensive preparation for a speech. This could be like an assignment in this class, like I'm about to do for y'all. It could be like a theater group, right? An improv group. But this could also just be your teacher asking you to sum up this week's lessons, like lesson plan on the spot, or your friend telling you to make a toast, right? It doesn't have to be this like intense thing. It can really just be something you do every day in class, right? It's that impromptu speaking that you didn't plan to do. And that can be super stressful. Um, I know, bro, have me impromptu speak makes me want to throw up. I can do it for this class because I know what this class is. Number one, I've planned the class. Number two, it's like I've done it so many times. Doing impromptu speeches about public speaking or MMS patterns, like, oh my gosh, I can do that so easily. But if I was literally at a wedding and someone was like, Sophia, like, make a speech, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I do. I don't even know what I do. I know I could pull it off, but my body would be stressed out the wazoo, right? But the thing I need to remember, and we all need to remember, is that the listeners realize that we are speaking off the cuff. Most of the times, like they know that we did not prepare something. So they don't expect a polished masterpiece. right? If they were going and paying money to see a TED Talk, yeah, I need a polished masterpiece 100%. But someone being like, get up there, make a speech. Yeah, maybe not. So let's get into how we can impromptu speak and what we need to do to be better at it. So honestly, we're just going to go over some guidelines. So first is you want to decide your conclusion first, which I find very fascinating. So you need to know how you end slash are getting out of your speech. This is so important because then this avoids this, well, I guess that's it. Also, when you feel like you don't know how to get out of your speech, you just ramble on and on and on and on. And it's just like we've talked about, it's like less is more, right? Keep it clear, keep it concise, keep it to the point, and you will be super effective in whatever you're talking about. So, first go conclusion and write out how you're going to get out of this speech. Next is organize your speech. So, use an organizational pattern you've discussed in the class, right? We talked about topical, problem solution, cause effect, MMS, all the ones we talked about today, right? So, do your conclusion first, then organize your speech. So, in this case, you're going to have a note card. We're going to have you write out the MMS pattern before you get your topic and go out in the hallway. Next, don't rush, right? Sometimes impromptu speeches, we're like, let's get this over with as fast as possible, but let's stay steady, let's stay calm, and don't be afraid of that pause if you really need to gather your thoughts and see where you're at for your next point, right? Next is whenever possible, link your remarks to those of other speakers. So if people were speaking before you, right, you can take statements from them and build upon it. You, for example, like so and so said, and I think my best speakers I've had were ones that in their impromptu speeches were like so and so said, college students like us, there's 25%, right? They're not just going to copy because we all are sitting there listening to everyone. But if you acknowledge, there's something about acknowledging that you've been listening that's adds to your credibility. I don't know what it is, but it's like, even though you're just basically stealing from someone else and like building upon it, it makes you sound smart because it sounds like you've been listening and you have been able to break down what they've said, if that makes sense. So, whenever possible, link those remarks. Next is don't mean knowledge. So, if asked a question, you definitely want to say, and you don't, bebop boop, hold on. Let me restart that one. Basically, what that means is don't try to wing it. Don't pretend you know something that you don't. If I asked a question that I did not know the answer to, I want you to say, or I would say, I'm not sure, but I can look into that. I'm not going to play along with it and just keep on blah, 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 right? I'm going to honestly just admit to it. Your book says to say, I don't know, but I have been taught there's way better ways to say I don't know. Like, I'm not so sure, but I can look into that. Oh, that's super interesting. I've never thought about it like that. Thank you. Um, but yeah, some people think that admitting ignorance like hurts your credibility, but often if you try to hide your ignorance and try to cover up by rambling, you can look foolish and insincere about this topic, and it will definitely hurt you. Next, be brief. So, avoiding rambling on by repeating the same ideas or irrelevant matters. Basically, stick to your pattern, right? Think about your main points, your support, and just go off of that. Be clear, be concise, be brief. And lastly, try to foresee situations where you are likely to be called upon to speak impromptu. So this is basically like you're planning what you will say if someone asks you to speak, right? So for example, you're driving back from a job workshop, you rehearse in your mind what you will say if the boss asks you to make a little presentation to your colleagues about what you learned. Or you're at your friend's bachelor party and he asks you to make a speech, right? Think about, okay, if I'm putting myself in this situation, what would I say if I needed to talk about like some main points? Just had to do an impromptu kind of presentation speech to a group of people. Already kind of have it planned out. So these are your guidelines for your impromptu speaking. Think about these on Wednesday when trying to, I don't know, if you're kind of lost, you've never done impromptu speaking before, draw on these and they will definitely help. And I don't want y'all to be scared about Wednesday or overthink it, but again, this class is all about practice. This class is about uplifting each other, helping each other, giving each other feedback. We're not here because we know we're the best speakers in this entire planet. We're taking this class because we want to be better and we want to be able to apply these skills. And we won't be able to get better at it if we don't start somewhere. So just do it in your public speaking class when you're expected to make speeches and you're expected to fail and you're expected not to be the best. So full send it. Let's do it. Excited for Wednesday. But that's all I really have for you today. I say that's all. We covered the MMS again. We talked about speaking to persuade. We talked about impromptu speaking and some guidelines on that. And we are about to go into our assignments. So, our assignments for the week. Oh, shoot, I forgot to add your quizzes on here, but pitch speech, topic, please have one chosen, if not, maybe two for, um, also that is wrong, I apologize. Um, Also for Wednesday's question of the day, I'll be asking you all about it and we can all solidify them, but I want your topic to already be chosen and most likely maybe having something, some parts of your outline built out of some sort. Once you got your topic, then you can move into your outline and your steps, your visual aid, which could be trifold or a Google slide on your laptop or whatever you want to do. And then, of course, the out of class challenges, schedule a coaching session and doing your pitch practice log, which is due the day of your speech. Okay, crew. Thank you for joining me on week 8. Y'all will have definitely, I'm thinking I want to do this. I haven't made your quizzes yet. I usually do the lecture and then I'll do your quizzes. But for sure one quiz. My thought is probably we'll do two, but whatever how many are on D2L, that's how many there's supposed to be. Just so you know. One or two I haven't made up my mind yet, but just keep an eye out. Okay, crew. That is all I have for you today. Make sure you do your quiz. Keep working on choosing a topic. If you have any questions, please email me. But other than that, I will see you on Monday.